This is our third session, and within this session we're going to run through the main readily available sources of information about the historic environment that are available on the web. This will give you an introduction to gathering known information about your land, and so start to inform you about the characteristics of the historic environment that need to be integrated into any planting proposal. There is a simple process at the heart of researching any land. You examine resources to discover what is already known. You collate this information in a systematic way, in part so that you understand where it has come from, and you then interrogate it to gain an understanding of your land. Now, this does not mean to say that you have a comprehensive understanding at the end of this, but you should know enough to start recognizing what you don't know. So, there's a treasure trove of information out there which may, or may not, be relevant to the land you want to investigate. How do you sort the wheat from the chaff? How do you end up with concise but useful information? How do you avoid being buried by information when you open the lid on it? Well, the best start is to understand and take advantage of the policies and guidance available. We went through these documents in session 2. But having read through some of the practice guides and the case studies from the FCS, you will give you a better, broader understanding of what you're trying to achieve. This in turn will help you to limit what information you are seeking to gather. The next step is to recognise that much of the readily available information is now online. Not all, but a lot. There are new resources being web-mounted every year. But then, how to avoid getting lost in irrelevant or minor resources? Well, the best place to start is on PastMap, a portal to a range of information that is maintained by the Royal Commission on the Ancient and Historical Monuments of Scotland. Apologies for the long mouthful. The abbreviation used is usually to the acronym RCAHMS. The portal site draws in information from Historic Environment Records, HERs, that are held by different organisations. Some of these will also be called Sites and Monuments Records, SMRs. There's a subtle difference, but not worth exploring here. These records have a whole range of potential purposes, as shown on this wheel, but we are looking at them primarily as an information resource about the location and character of the historic environment. All our HERs are an agglomeration of knowledge that has been gathered over centuries about the historic environment. As such, you must be cautious when examining the HER records. They'll not be of a common standard. Records will only exist where people have done work. They are in essence fragmentary and partial. Do not expect a nice, neat, comprehensive record. Looking at the data in an HER is a starting point, not an end point.
My name's Alan Kilpatrick. I'm an archaeologist for the Royal Commission on the Ancient and Historical Monuments of Scotland. The Royal Commission, soon to be a part of Historic Environment Scotland, is an organisation which has been recording the built heritage of Scotland since 1908. And we're almost there. But we strive to improve, and we do this through the production of the record being a list and details of archaeological sites and artefact finds across Scotland. There are over 300,000 sites in the national record, so there is a tremendous amount of material to be looked at through the various resources that we're able to give to both the professional and to public users. PastMap is the key for looking at this historic environment. It's a one-stop shop, if you like, containing a range of data, which includes the Royal Commission's data, which is via Canmore, local authority historic environment records, HER records, and also Historic Scotland data, in particular the scheduled ancient monuments. This information in the records are derived from various sources, from actual archaeological field survey or field visits, from aerial photography, national cover, vertical, or perhaps even oblique cover. and other information that has come from community. Many, for example, in forestry areas, from foresters themselves. So all that information is all put together and can be viewed through PassMap. Not every section, Canmore won't have all the HER won't have it all, but combined it becomes a very powerful tool to give you the greatest overall picture of the resource there on the ground. There are sadly, of course, limitations. The records only contain what we know about. Information that we don't know, of course, won't appear. Information that's come from maps, such as those from the First Edition Survey project, which was an invaluable project looking at First Edition maps, should be embodied within the records. But, interestingly enough, because the First Edition Survey project was recording only unroofed buildings, where a settlement had a roof building and no unroofed buildings, that settlement wasn't recorded. So one must always still look at the original documentation elsewhere, for example, like the Ordnance Survey maps. But on the whole, PassMap itself, and with all the resources within it, will give you the best understanding of the historic environment within your area.
This is the web page for search resources on the RCAHMS website. There are 2 pages of different web-based resources. These include a direct link into RCAHMS's own database called Canmore, an historic image library known as SCRAN, 2 separate collections of historic aerial photographs, and the Historic Land Use Assessment data, known as HLA map. But we're looking for PassMap, which is on the 2nd page. PassMap is a portal providing access to a series of layers of information from different sources. These are overlain on a modern map base. You can navigate using the map tool in the left side of the bar at the top, allowing you to zoom in or pan until you find the area of greatest interest. Here we've zoomed in on the eastern side of Mull, specifically the area around Arras, including Arras Castle. On the right hand side is a drop-down menu of data you can turn on to display it. Here we've turned on 2 layers, Canmore, the HER data held by RCAHMS, the blue dots, and scheduled monuments, the map data from Historic Scotland for this designation, the red area. On the layer menu, you get a score of how many sites in each layer are displayed on the screen. In our case, the numbers are 15 and 1 respectively. If you click on one of these areas or dots, you can link through to the database from which they derive. That's why this is a portal. We're going to first do this for the scheduled monument. This is the page we have opened for us in a new tab, giving us a summary of the monument that is designated, Arras Castle. And on the right is a summary information including index number, the unique identifier for this designation, and a link to the legal scheduling document. Remember from session 2 that it is the text within this document that defines the actual location and extent of the scheduling. If you select this link, you'll access a PDF of the original document, which is usually 3 pages long, a cover, the text-based description of the designation area, and a map for guidance. It is this map that is the basis for the area shown on PassMap. You can download this document for future reference. Remember though that a designation is just that, an area of protected land. It's quite possible to have a site that is more extensive than its designation. You can undertake a similar process of questioning listed buildings should you want this information, again linking to Historic Scotland's information database regarding listed buildings. However, we are going to now look at the first of the 2 HERs available for this area, Canmore. This is the RCAHMS's own dataset and is displayed as the blue dots, marking points where data is known. though please appreciate that the location of the dot may owe more to the quality of the information than the location of the site. Look carefully at how accurate the grid reference is for your sites. We're going to select the blue dot that is within the red scheduled area, which should also relate to Arras Castle. We are linked through to the Canmore database and their record page for Arras Castle. Each site in Canmore has an ID, in this case 22272. And on that site's record page there is a standard series of pieces of information about where and what the site is on the top left. The top right shows what documents, photos, drawings, reports are held within the RCA HMS collection. Below this data is a description of the site, which is a collation of extracts from other people's work that give descriptions about the site. This is rarely a coherent integrated text. Rather, it's a series of chunks of information that could be conflicting if different workers have found out different things. All these chunks of information are referenced. So below this is a listing of the sources that this information has been drawn from. It's important to look at these sources when you read the description. Consider how serious the source is and how old it is. Question whether you trust these. Where they are available from the top of the record page, you can also link through to digital resources. For Arras Castle, we have a series of images of the castle from over time, but these sources could include plans and other detailed information. Each of these digital images can be viewed by clicking on them. Where documents are listed by the RCHMS but are not available as digital resources, you can ask for them to be digitized. However, this takes time and attracts a charge. But for essential documents and to avoid a journey to Edinburgh, this can be an excellent solution. From the tools on the top bar of PassMap, you can also drag a selection box across multiple sites, as you can see here in the centre of the screen overlying Arras Castle again. Selecting a group of sites allows you to generate a report, again on the top toolbar, which summarises the sites you selected, enables you to download this data as a CSV file. Remember that you're trying to gather information in an organised way, so downloading information like this gives you a framework into which you can add data from other sources while keeping track of where it came from. We have now turned on another layer on the PassMap, labelled Historic Environment Record. This is the data from your local authority archaeology service, if this is managed separately from Canmore. For Mull, this falls in Argyll and Bute, and their archaeology service is the West of Scotland Archaeology Service, who maintain an independent database. You will need to set up a login to access this data from PassMap, but it's simple and straightforward. These features appear as green areas and dots. You'll notice that most of the dots overlie Canmore dots. This is because these databases share information, but that doesn't mean their records are totally the same. You should always check both and look for differences. So we're going to look at the big green area to the southwest of Arras Castle. By clicking on the area, it links us through to the West of Scotland Archaeology Service database, showing this area to be a desk-based assessment and survey of a new road line. This is an event, not a monument. Events are where work has been done to gather information. Monuments are the identified sites from that work. By understanding where work has been undertaken, especially survey, you can start to recognise where you have good detailed information and where you should consider marking your map, "Here be dragons." In summary, PassMap provides a window onto the available data about an area. It's not definitive. You must question the origin of the data, its accuracy, and an absence of sites may simply reflect an absence of work. If you have questions about HER data, want to check whether they have additional sites, or seek advice on shortcomings in the known sites, contact your local archaeology service, or for national designations, Historic Scotland. You can explore further than the existing HERs. One of the easiest resources to hunt through to understand your land is historic mapping, in particular older versions of Ordnance Survey maps. These can be invaluable at identifying small buildings and settlements that have been lost from the modern landscape. This is the National Library of Scotland's map viewer. On the left bar, you can select which map you would like to view, and then you can zoom in to the area of interest. Not all of the maps held by the National Library of Scotland are mounted on this viewer. Many are available through their digital maps section, but this is a superb way of appreciating how useful their resources are. Here we've zoomed back in on Arras and Arras Castle and selected the 2nd edition 6-inch Ordnance Survey map for the area. So, late 19th century. Once here, we can look to see if any of the sites that we looked at in past map are visible on this map, or if we can see other potential heritage sites that are not in past map. But what we can also do is slip back in time by changing the map displayed to an earlier version. And here we are, in the mid-19th century with the 1st edition Ordnance Survey map. The ability to jump between versions of the same map allows you to recognise how the landscape changed and altered through the 19th and 20th century. But the viewer can do more. In the top right corner is a box that advises us what the background map is, in this case an aerial image. Then in the top left is a slider bar. If you move the slider, the map gradually becomes transparent, allowing you to compare map features to the actual ground, or indeed features you have seen on aerial images with the different available maps to see whether they can explain what the feature is. With the slider all the way left, a clean version of the underlying base map is shown. This is a superb resource that enables you to quickly and easily link historic maps with the modern landscape. Beyond the HERs and the historic maps, there's a mountain of information that could be of potential use to you. Museum records, image libraries, history books, archives, the list is almost endless. What you need to judge is at what point you have gathered enough information to understand the current knowledge about your land. When does your input of effort stop generating obvious benefit to your understanding? The canny among you will have spotted that a lot of the designations we mentioned in section 2 were not on past map. This is expected to be resolved as past map gets upgraded. Until then, Historic Scotland has a range of resources on their website for those designations that do not appear on past map. They also can provide downloads of designation data if you run GIS software. If you want to understand more about the information and advice available on the historic environment, the FCS have a web-mounted guide available. Please do have a look at this to further assist you in understanding the resources out there. Perhaps the most important thing to do as you work through HERs and any other resources you are looking at is to keep track of what you have accessed. Build up your list of known sites. Record what the evidence is for each and mark up on a map where they are. Collate your information together, but make sure you can explain where it all came from. The web resources available to you are improving every year. They offer a rapid way of understanding the likely constraints on any portion of ground, but do not assume that they are comprehensive. You need to learn to question and query this data. This way you can move forward with confidence as to what is known and what is unknown. Our next session, When Do You Need a Specialist?, explains how you can go about filling in the gaps in the available information about the historic environment.